Hey there, Melanie. Just adding you as a co-host. And how are you?
I'm good. Just got back. Well, I got back an hour ago from my workout, so
Okay, okay. Well, we haven't done a room in a long time, so we'll
I
see if
know.
anyone shows up.
We
So
shall see.
it was, yeah, for everyone who was listening to the replay, there was a Canada Day long weekend in May, then there was the American long weekend in May, and then I had a conflict, so I couldn't do it, and so it hasn't happened, and
Yeah.
so it's been a month, so we're seeing if we bring it back. I picked a topic that is relevant on personal branding and building thought leadership because everything that's happening this week actually is about this. So later today at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, I'm doing a live stream on personal branding with on LinkedIn live, but also it'll be tweeting live as well with String Million and Cher Jones. And then on Wednesday, I'm doing a webinar, a workshop on how to 10x your business or career with thought leadership. So that's kind of what it's about. So I need to like ping people in to see if they want to join us. So I will do that, and you feel free to do that too, Melanie. While we wait for some folks to come in. All right, let's see if that worked. I just sent a DM to a whole bunch of folks. And do you DM people, Melanie? Are you a DM person or are you more of a tweeter person? I mean, I know you're
I'm more of a tweeter,
okay.
but there's definitely a few people that I can.
Yeah, so what Twitter Spaces does well is it allows you to DM people like 20. You can DM 20 accounts right away. I mean, unfortunately, some of the people who DM me are people who are just spam accounts. But what the tactic I like to use is sometimes I'm part of groups or I create groups, and you can DM the group of people, which is a much easier way to get people to see what you're up to. So I like that aspect.
Yeah, I haven't actually. I need to. I haven't spent a whole lot of time on Twitter a lot lately, especially since, well, we don't have our account for TLB, so.
Okay. Well, yes. Well, we love to have people in our rooms and we love to have them on stage. So, if people want to come and be part of this conversation, hey, Beatrice, welcome to our room. We haven't done a room for about a month, so we're hoping that a bunch of you can join us and be part of the conversation because we're going to talk about personal branding and how to build a thought leadership brand for your business, for your career, and for your overall story, legacy, and life. That's really what today is all about. So, if you want to join us on stage, put your hand up. We'll bring you on stage and be part of the conversation. Because yeah, I'm looking for a two-way conversation with folks. Same with our Colt. If you want to come up on stage, we'd love to have you here. But yeah, let's just start with the conversation. I'll start with the introduction of myself. My name is Bobby Omar. I am a professional speaker by trade for the last 17, actually 18 years. I've traveled around the world and delivered 1,000 keynotes and workshops across 4 continents. I'm also a five-time TEDx speaker, and I'm also a digital influencer with over 650,000 followers, half a million on Twitter, so that's where a big part of it, but I also have 70,000 on LinkedIn and 35,000 on Instagram. And I pretty much focus on helping people get clarity in their personal brand, whether they're an individual or it's a leadership team. And then I help them build their thought leadership brand through a series of different aspects of focus, including mindset and confidence, building meaningful relationships, personal branding, of course, digital content, digital presence, storytelling, and speaking skills. And in doing so, I'm able to get people to build that thought leadership brand. And what's the benefit of thought leadership brand? Well, you get more business leads, you get more business income, you get more job opportunities, and then you get some really cool specialty things like uh, you get TED Talks, media appearances, speaking gigs, book deals. Those are things you'll get by building a thought leadership brand for yourself because it affects you and it affects your business. So that's kind of what what I focus on. That's my introduction. Melanie, introduce yourself, please.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Melanie Mitchell Wexler. I am a career coach, job search expert, and a LinkedIn strategist. And I work with professionals throughout the United States and helping them in particular, especially, I don't think people kind of realize this, but even as a career coach, understanding what your personal brand is, how you define it, how it shows up in all of your social media, but also, excuse the crying cat. He's only doing it because I'm talking. And how it shows up on your resume to your LinkedIn profile, and how it can help you achieve your career goals. So that topic is very important, especially from a career perspective. So um, happy to be here today and back at it, and we'll get back at it. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
definitely,
So
it's been a while. So
it's been a while, so our room's kind of small, but luckily, Colt and Beatrice are lucky because they're getting our full attention. So if you want to come up on stage and ask a question, we can look at your business, look at your brand, look at your profile, answer questions even right now, or even talk about your content strategy, or talk about your digital presence and what are you doing on Twitter, or on LinkedIn, on Instagram. So feel free to put your hand up and be part of it. I'll start with the basics though, which is really the personal branding piece. So personal branding, I mean, getting clarity in personal brand is understanding exactly how you are perceived in the marketplace. What people like about you, what people they don't like about you, what makes you memorable, what makes you not so memorable. And by having that grounded understanding or snapshot of where you are as a brand, that allows you to then figure out what's the path for you to move forward as a brand. So a lot of people, don't take the time to do this. And I think the number one thing with personal branding is do the work, invest the time and energy to do the work to understand your personal brand. It takes about 20, 30 hours of time, but is it worth it to get clarity on what you're trying to do? That's kind of, to me, what the most important thing is. So, sorry, I'm distracted because my son's here. What are you looking for, son? My kids are home today, so they played a trick on us this morning. They said, "We're like, why aren't you going to school? What's going on?" And my daughter's eating cereal on the sofa, and my son's like just chilling. What are you guys doing? And then they tell us, "Oh, it's a PD day or a PA day, so professional development day." So they're off now. So, anyways, they're here, so they're distracting me. But yeah, I think that it takes work to understand your personal brand and put the work into it. So you basically, for me, I have a methodology that I use that I teach people, and I've written articles about it, and I have videos on it too. So you can certainly look those things up. I typically focus on a few things: your values, your personality traits, your skills, your interests, and the stories of your life. And by looking at those things, we can look at what parts of those are meaningful to you and how they affect your personal brand. And then the other thing I focus on is, if you want to find your personal brand, you have to do your own self assessment. You also get the assessment of other people. So a feedback mechanism. What do other people think of you? How they experience you? How they feel about you? And then finally, using online assessments, things like Myers Briggs and Enneagram, like online assessment tools. And by doing all three of those things, you then start to extract all the threads and themes that align with you. So when I did this for myself, what I found was that everybody, include every personally, I thought this. My entire feedback network thought this, and the online assessments all said, Bobby is a people guy. I'm all about people. I love people. And so whatever work I do, it's got to be something to do with connecting and dealing with people. And so that's kind of what I found out from that process. And when you do the process, you also find out that some things are not aligned. So, the feedback mechanism might say, well, 10 people said, you're a big picture, high level thinker. And another 10 people said, you're a detail oriented thinker. And so that's not really aligned. So maybe you're a little bit of both, and that's fine, but it's not really something that stands out. So for me, doing my personal brand, I was able to identify things about myself, including that I love people, I love nurturing, I love persuading influence, I love performing, presenting, and I love diversity. And in doing so, I decided to become a professional speaker. That's kind of what I did. There was a few things I could have done, but that's what I decided to do. So that to me is why personal branding is so important before you get to, okay, let's build a thought leadership brand. So Melanie, why don't you share your thought, and anyone else, guys, you're in the audience, come up on stage, put your hand up. Let's hear your thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Okay, so put your hand up. But Melanie, you want to share your thoughts on personal branding specifically?
yeah, I mean, I think that the when it comes to personal branding, I mean, one of the things that I learned really kind of in my own journey in terms of I was a recruiter for over 20 years. And that's kind of what I quote unquote identified as. But when I transitioned to coaching, it was a whole new perspective. I had to look at my entire career very differently and what I was, like how was I going to be seen, and I think that a lot of people honestly struggle with that because they don't necessarily. I was definitely that person that didn't necessarily see myself as quote unquote having a personal brand. That was never a conversation or anything um, you know, that I had a conversation with anybody ever in my entire career. I was just a recruiter. So going through this process for the last 6 years, having been a coach, having own, starting my own business, which, wasn't necessarily, I don't know if there's a normal way to do that anyways, but it's been a journey for myself personally, just in discovering, how do I define myself as a personal coach? What makes me different than the rest of, or the rest of career coaches, I should say, career coaches that are out there? What makes me different? Why, and I get asked that question all the time, why should I hire you? And I have a very clear and direct answer in terms of that, but it's also, how am I conveying that to my audience when I'm on social media, whether it's, social audio rooms or posting or creating content, whatever that may be, what is the message being conveyed? So it's a process and it's a journey. And I also think too, your brand may change, that's as you develop and as you go through the course of your career, your brand will change. Your values, there are going to be certain things that are going to become more important. You may become more of an expert in a certain area that you didn't necessarily anticipate. That was definitely the case for me when it came to LinkedIn. My LinkedIn journey was selfish. It was for me. I needed to understand how to operate on this platform, or on that platform in particular, and how it was going to help me in my business. So, but from that, what it came was that I realized there was a lot of people like me that didn't quite understand it. So now, in particular, I help job seekers, but I also help. I have clients that are business owners, entrepreneurs, and that now I'm able to, because of the education I've given myself and learning from some of the best LinkedIn experts in the world, that I'm able to impart that to my clients. So, it's an ever evolving, your brand is ever evolving in particular. So,
Yeah, no, I think the evolution of your brand is important to understand because it does change. My values changed. For example, when I became a parent, when I became a dad, things priorities were different for me. And then, of course, the pandemic changed things because I had to switch kind of my careers from speaking to doing more coaching. And as I started to get more expertise in, say, LinkedIn or Instagram or Twitter, I started to become, okay, this is going to be part of my brand and what I do. So your brand does evolve as you do. So that's why personal brand is so important. Now we have someone on stage today. Hooray! Okay, well, Maureen Ottawa, welcome to the stage. Go ahead and share your thoughts or questions, or what was it? Introduce yourself today.
Hello, good morning. It's 11:15 a.m. in Ottawa. I think you said my name right. I'm not sure. A lot of people say morning. It's moringa, like the plant, but I get
No,
it.
I initially saw morning, and I was like, oh wait a second, no, it's moringa. It's a moringa. Okay.
I'll take it. Both are good things, positive things. Yeah, I'm in here because the whole thing about the branding, the personal brand, I mean, like if we go a few years back in Instagram, when people started talking about that, you might roll your eyes, and it just was kind of, well, it was associated with inauthenticity. Whereas now we've been pushed into like, hey, this is the reality, and oh, you like that? Okay, here's some more of it. But finding the balance. For me, it's about capitalizing on it. It's just not been my priority. I've always kind of known who I am, but yes, you do change. And I'm very solid on like where I can provide value and where I can find value. And I love that about Twitter too. And the Twitter spaces, of course. I've signed up for Twitter Blue for a year, but I struggled with putting through like, okay, here's the funnel for you to pay me, for me to get paid. And sometimes you need like a little bit of a boost, you know, and I feel like a few things have boosted me. But then again, health took priority. Like you said, the other priorities will come about. And what I like is I did subscribe to one person this year when the option came. It was Arid or something. And he's been so generous in like telling us how these things work. And I realized even if you have a great plan and idea, it's still got to work within your life boundaries, you know. And one of the things he kind of steered me away from was like starting a Discord. Although I have a lot of energy, he just thought maybe it would be like you'd have to be too hands on, and it would take me away from doing the photography content and all that. So it's such a gauntlet, but hey, it's awesome to be here where we are, whereas our elders in our past would have been here like maybe at 60, 70. It's just amazing that we can be at this place and have seen so much and know like what we can give and be self-employed, right? So I'm Moringa Ottawa. What I started off with was Yam and Okra Project in 2020, and it was to present 8 different entertainers in Ottawa, and it was to give like a feel-good thing. I was worried about bringing in the politics, and now I'm just trying to go provide something that will be like, I don't want to say family friendly. I just want to say flexible. So I think the nature side of it will do that, and the music and all of that, because I do need to feed myself, a little bit more. All of us probably who are here are probably givers. So I appreciate being in here. I think that's enough for now. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
and nice to hear
fantastic.
from Melanie about hearing from her transition to the new career too, and just being honest about that. I really enjoyed that story, so I'm going to listen.
Yeah, so feel free to stay on stage because you can speak up again, which is great. I mean, there's so much to unpack from what you said. You said a lot of things, which I loved. So it's like, okay, where do we start? But the first thing I want to ask people is that on the top on the nested feed above, it's a tweet talking about this event today, this Twitter space. So if you could kindly retweet that to your followers, we'd like to get more people in this room so they can get the value from the conversation. That's the first thing. The second thing is personal branding. A lot of people look at personal branding as this whole idea, personal branding to stand out, to be noticed. And that certainly is a benefit of personal branding. But what I would tell you also is that the other aspect of personal branding that's really powerful that people don't talk about enough is the alignment, is the meaningfulness. It's when you have that alignment and meaningfulness around what you're doing and your purpose and path, then everything you do goes a lot better. The truth is, most of us have a general idea of what our personal brand is because that's part of the self assessment piece. But the truth is, that's going to be anywhere from, and whether you, even if you work with it, get some advice from a couple of your friends, you may come up with a personal brand that's 40, 50, 60% aligned with who you truly are. But if you do the deep dive work, take a course, work with a professional, or even do your own like long assessment through the methodology that I talk about, which is again free to access via articles out there and videos that I create. You can create something that's far more clear and purposeful and directional. It's going to be 85, 95%. When you do that, when it's 85, 90% aligned, and you put together your branding strategy and try to build that thought leadership brand, then you're going to be more effective over a shorter period of time, and that's where it becomes really good because then there's people I know, they start with this personal, because with personal brand the way it works is there's 3 steps. There's discover your personal brand where you dive deep into it. There's the design your personal brand where you come up with the strategy and the assets and the tactics and the marketing materials. And then there's the deploy your personal brand where you put it out there and you start talking to people about your personal brand. Now, what happens is that most people they're always in design mode and they design and they deploy and then like 18 months later, gee, my digital strategy not working, what's going on here? So you have to do the deep dive work, and when you do that, and if it's more aligned, the design is more aligned, then you get the result. So I think that's the first thing that came to my mind based on what you said. Melanie, any thoughts to what Moringa said? There's so many.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a lot too, which I totally appreciate. In terms of kind of going through that process and really discovering kind of like, okay, this is what I want to offer, and this is what I want to do, and also coming to alignment with that. Bobby knows. I've struggled with the I've always charged, but I've struggled with that money piece as well, and asking for, um, feeling confident enough to ask for my value, which is funny because it's what I coach my clients in when when I help them with negotiation on salaries. It's much easier to coach somebody in that piece, but it's one of the things that
Absolutely.
So there's all these little pieces about it, and I also agree with you as well that when like I said in the beginning, I never talked to anybody, 20 plus year career as a recruiter. I never talked about a personal brand, like never had that conversation, and, showed up, transitioning as a coach, which was kind of by accident. So, I had to really like lean into understanding, yes, I do have a brand. It's not a cheesy thing to say. And in fact, it's actually everybody has a brand, no matter, if you embrace it or not, you do. And so, but it really can help you. And I said this earlier, but it really truly can help you move your career further, and move it ahead, especially when you really truly know it and, embrace it. And that's how you show up. So I really loved a lot of everything that you said.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it looks like the other speaker that has left, but and we have another person who's joined us on stage. I'll get you in a second.
That
What I,
Colt?
well, no, Colt has not joined us here, but Colt is very active with the emojis, the emoticons, which we love. So that's good. Um, but what I want to talk about again, so the whole idea is that you get clarity in your personal brand, and then once you do that, then you build up the thought leadership brand. And that's where the difference between a personal brand and thought leadership brand, I'll explain very briefly, is that there's an expression that says a personal brand is what they say when you're not in a room. So, right, it's basically your reputation, your integrity, how people perceive you. But a thought leadership brand is what they say before you enter a room and when you enter a room, even after when you leave the room, because you are known, and so they think about you around a topic before you show up. They think about you afterwards, like you're a known entity. So a person who has a thought leadership brand is someone who's known, is someone who is recognized for a topic of expertise. When someone's name is when some topic of expertise is mentioned, you think of their name. So, for example, when you think of vulnerability, you might think of Brené Brown. When you think of entrepreneurship hustle, you might think of Gary Vaynerchuk. And when you think of educating young girls, you might think of Malala, because these are global brands that have a reputation around what they represent. And so building a thought leadership brand around you and your business or your career is what's going to make you memorable, and people will start thinking about you even before they even know you. So I built a strong thought leadership brand around myself and what I do. And so now what happens is people approach me for TED Talks, they approach me for speaking gigs and media appearances because I'm known. And even though I lost my blue check mark, which I had for 10 years, um, it's okay. I still have 500,000 followers, although what's interesting is it's been dwindling ever since Elon Musk took over. I lose about 300 to 400 every week, which is I was at 518,000 and now it's like 507. Yeah, I know it's just going down. It goes down every week. It's
They
so
were
weird.
never loyal to begin with.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's fine. It's fine. I'm still pretty happy. Whether I'm 490 or 510, it's all good. I'm just very happy to have been on this platform and been able to get so many gains. Like having a thought leadership brand has led to the TED Talks. People ask, well, how do you have TED Talk? Well, I train people on this, and one of the things is having a good idea. Number two, knowing how to pitch or apply for TED Talks, but having a thought leadership brand is a huge, huge aspect to it. In fact, I've done 5 TEDx talks, but I've actually been asked to do 8, and I've only applied to one TEDx talk that I got in. The other 8 or the other 7 actually were people approaching me because of my thought leadership brand, and 4 I said yes to, 3 I said no to. And so that's where the thought leadership brand piece becomes quite powerful. It's also a reputation thing because if someone is looking for expertise in networking or personal branding, and they see my brand, there's greater trust in, hey, maybe I'll reach out to Bob instead of reaching out for someone who they don't know. So that's another reason why you want to build that thought leadership brand. So that's kind of how I define thought leadership brand versus personal brand. Now, how do you build that? That's a whole other question, but I'm going to talk on that in a second. But I'm going to actually let Melanie speak to see if she, and also one other thing for Melanie is, if you can't come on stage and you want to engage, there's a bubble on the bottom right there. You can actually ask questions there. You can share stuff. There's things you can do to promote. You can also take the tweet that I have above, and you can actually quote tweet, retweet it, and just say, hey, we're doing a room around thought leadership branding and Twitter Spaces. Come join us, and that way, more people will come to the room. So that's what we're trying to do here. But Melanie, why don't you talk a bit about your definitions of thought leadership branding?
Yeah, I mean, I think, being a thought leader is that you, in particular, you have an expertise, particularly in one really key area. It's been something I've really been honing in on quite a lot lately, to be honest with you, because, and I see this, and I'll use it from the perspective of as a career coach, because what I see happening in the job market in particular is that people are trying to be everything to everyone right now in hopes of, because the job market right now is just brutal for a lot of people. But I think it relates well to being a thought leader as well. Is you really need to be that one, like, this is my area. And it's not that you can't have expertise or knowledge in other areas, but this is why you hire me. Like, this is why, this is why you should have me come and speak. This is why, and own that space. Become the best version of yourself in that space. And I think that in terms is a true, is a true thought leader, in terms of thought leadership, branding also in particular, is that you are known for that one thing that makes you stand out from the rest of the pack. That's the reason people come to you. That's the reason they gravitate towards you. And so I see this happening a lot, even with coaches. Coaches that'll be like, well, I don't want to niche down, or I don't want to, like, I want to be everything to, I want to give a little bit of here and a little bit of this. Instead, really focus on what you have to offer. And whether you're a business owner, entrepreneur, even, just in your own career, everybody can be a thought leader. Again, going back to mindset here and just how we see ourselves, in the last, 2 years of being able to work alongside Bobby, and also with the Thought Leadership Branding Club in particular. I wouldn't have said to you 2 years, 3 years ago, oh, I'm a thought leader. Like, I was still like, and I'm not even sure sometimes I would say it today, to be honest with you, but getting there, definitely being able to get there in terms of, I think in the last, year and a half for me in particular, really owning what sets me apart from other career coaches in particular is the fact that I was on the other side of the fence as a recruiter for 20 plus years. My job, my success for 20 years was determined by my candidates being hired. So I've been on both sides. I've worked with both sides of the fence. So I think that's, and once I've started to lean in on that and lean into that knowledge, that has really helped me and helped my business grow in particular. And also being able to go and speak and have opportunities to do presentations and, social audio rooms and whatever the case may be. So for me, that's what true thought leader. And I think Moringa may have a question. Yeah, you can come off of mute.
Thanks. Okay, so I don't want to sidetrack it too much, but when you did say that you were a recruiter in the beginning, I had a little phase as a recruiter, was helping a friend and his friend's company, I think it was Salesforce or something like that, in Toronto. And so that was a real, also, I mean, like, I had also done some recruiting just to replace my job before I went off to do my master's at York University. But that was so insightful as well, and just looking at, I think it's rare actually to have some recruiters who are really in tune with the conversation and can really pick up, like, I don't know, that can that can pick up on other things than just what's on paper. So it was really interesting for me, and I think for you as a coach to go from the recruiting to there, knowing what those companies want or what's like the main thing that keeps coming up, what's the institutional culture, I mean, what are the hiccups, the challenges. It probably helped a lot, and maybe it kind of irked your nurturing side too, like, oh my god, like let me go over here and show people their value. I could be speaking out of turn, but it's just curious to me, like that transition. And want to put that out there if you want to add anything.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that because it was funny because I made kind of like, I don't know when so I started coaching, honestly, guys, by accident. It wasn't like, that was not my intent. I was actually headed towards corporate recruiting. After I left the company back in 2016, I'd been with them for 8 years, and my goal, I was actually in the job market myself for off and on throughout 2017, and I was actually had a position. I was corporate recruiting for a firm in DC. Wasn't going to be a coach. I honestly started coaching because I needed to earn extra cash. So I was just doing resumes. Like, that's how I got started. And then it just kind of grew because one client would say, hey, can you help me with this? Or can you help me with this? And then I was getting referrals. And so my business grew honestly by accident. That wasn't the intended goal. Um, and then, but yeah, I kind of made an assumption that, like, oh, people have had, if you're a career coach, you've come from this background of, like, whether it may be recruiting or HR, that you've been there, you've done it, you've lived it, which is a very hard field to do, especially honestly for the length of the time that I did it. But the reality was, and not to, not dissing any other career coaches, because all backgrounds and experiences have value, but there's not a lot of coaches that have that type of background, to be very honest with you. And I see that quite a lot in talking to other coaches, working with other coaches. And it's actually another career coach that is actually part of the Thought Leadership Branding Club that really pushed me to embrace that side. It was always there, but I don't know. I never really, I don't think I downplayed it. I just didn't really hype it up a lot. And now it's a very big part of my brand. It's a big part of who I am and what I offer. So that's kind of, tying it all back to personal branding and even thought leadership branding. That's, it's a big piece of, for me, that's a big piece of who I am and what I offer. And so I really, and learned to embrace it. So I appreciate those thoughts.
I actually have one follow-up question that is right on spot with this thought leadership branding. So I'm just going to say it quickly, and it's to anybody up here,
Yeah,
especially
go for it.
Bobby. Thank you. So do you feel, or do you get the sense that thought leadership branding, in the way that you've explained it, like people will think of you in a certain way before, after, and during, like if you're in their presence, is it intimidating to other more traditional brands and corporate brands because you're living your brand? You're, I mean, in a way, it's some people may find like intimidating, like in a morality sense, like, am I making sense here? Is there what are the challenges that you guys have gone through working with corporate traditional brands, and,
Well,
and going into this avenue?
yeah, I think the biggest challenge working with corporate, and I've been doing personal branding training for individual corporations for over a decade. And the biggest challenge is always that they are very much afraid to have their employees dive into personal branding, because the fear is that as soon as they do that, the people will find out that their values and everything they're all about are not aligned with the company and the corporation, and they will leave. But what I tell, what I educate corporations on is, like, if you have people in your organization that aren't aligned with the way you guys are, or the predisposition for what you guys want with the leaders in your company, and they're going to leave, you want them to leave, because you don't want misaligned people in your organization. You want aligned people in your organization. So I think a lot of corporations are really fearful of that. And then going back to this other thing, I'm not sure what you mean about the fear of people who are living their brand. I mean, maybe it feels like the Matrix, right? I'm someone who left the Matrix and am living my real human life. and everyone else still plugged in as batteries for the corporate machine. I mean, is that what you mean? Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, in a way, you're kind of a wild card.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think
To
that's
them, not to you. You like to probably to you and to people who know you, you've had the same values. It's just that you're living
yeah.
it out loud. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's certainly something that's really interesting. What I would say to that though is that, you know, where would you rather be? The truth is, like when you talk to most people in corporate, and every time I talk to someone in corporate, the common expression is like, well, I'm here, I'm feeling stuck, I'm feeling unfulfilled, I really want to leave. Okay, great. So then do you? And then most people, they don't leave. And the question I would ask them is that, can you imagine being here next year telling me the exact same thing? And they all say, yeah, I could probably be here next year. And I have one person in particular, is a friend of mine. She's booked a call with me every year for 3 years. And I think this last time, I think I said, look, I'm here for you if you want to leave, if you want to escape the matrix, I'm here for you. But you have to make that commitment. You can't make excuses like, oh, my bonus is coming up, or there's this project I want to finish, or yada yada yada, right? And I don't know if she's ever going to leave. But every year I talk to her, she's always feeling exhausted and unfulfilled and overwhelmed. And I'm like, when you think of personal branding too, and you think of thought leadership branding, ask yourself this question: what do I want my story and legacy to be? I look back at my life. Let's say I'm 85 years old. I'm sitting in my rocking chair and I'm looking back at my life. What is my legacy going to be? Is it going to be, oh, I made $100 million for that company X, or is it going to be something else? Is it going to be something more important to you? What exactly do you want that story to be? Because when you think of that way, and you reverse engineer, you realize, you know what? I don't necessarily need to build someone else's dream for 50 years. Maybe I can be in corporate for a little bit and get learning and training and development and mentorship and world experience, whatever it might be. But at a certain point, you want to build something that's true to who you are and what you're all about. And that's why I think it's so important to clarify your personal brand and build a thought leadership brand and legacy that's your own. And I've been educating people for over a decade on this, because in the early days of personal branding, it was like, well, personal branding, I'm not a bar of soap. Like, well, no, no, you're not a bar of soap. It's just, understanding what your reputation is, your integrity, how people see you. And in the early days of personal branding, I was teaching people what it was. And now I'm teaching people, and why it's important. But now I'm teaching people how to do it, because now people are, okay, I get it. Now, how do I do this? And so that, I think, is an important piece to understand. And while we're talking about personal branding, I also want to mention that the Thought Leaders Brand Club, which is the club that hosts this room, we're actually a membership community where we help businesses and brands build their brands and network with other like-minded professionals. In yeah, well, there's actually it's a global community of diverse professionals from around the world, and we help each other out, build our brands, build our businesses. And so we have weekly calls, we have weekly trainings, and I had a couple of announcements. One is in the nest above, the Twitter nest above, there's a live stream today. We do a monthly live stream, and I brought in two personal branding experts, String Nguyen and Cher Jones. And we're going to talk about personal branding live on LinkedIn. So make sure you come check that out 4:30 p.m. today. But also on Wednesday, I'm actually doing a webinar specifically on how to 10x your business with thought leadership. I'm going to talk about, I'll share that link later, how to 10x your business with thought leadership, and how to actually use the 8 different essential thought leadership to amplify your brand and business and generate the digital results that you want. So that's the other thing I'm doing. And then finally, we have weekly calls on Thursday and Friday. They're Zoom calls with the community. We often have guest speakers and trainings and things like that. Hold on, wait your turn, please. Wait your. If you're gonna come on stage, that's fine, but you keep your mic muted, okay? While we're trying to do the conversation, and then I'll call on you if when it's your chance to speak, okay? I was in the middle of my thought here. What was I saying?
The yeah.
Coaching calls.
Yeah, the calls, right? So we do a call on Thursday at 4 p.m. Then we do a call on Fridays at 10 a.m. every week, and we usually bring in a guest speaker, expert speaker, for 10, 15 minutes. And you can come to our rooms for free, pitch your brand, pitch your business, get to know people, and learn about us and learn about the TLB Club. So if anyone's interested in that, you can just ping me or DM me anytime here or on other platforms. And sorry, third time's a charm, but third time's also the 3 strikes and you're out. So I've kind of removed my head from the Mehed, I'm happy to have you talk to us, but you keep unmuting and it's very noisy. Okay, so when you are able to, why don't you DM me first, man? I'm not going to bring you up until you DM me that you are ready to keep muted and on mic when I call on you. Okay, so just DM me and then I'll accept your request. For now, I'm not accepting a request. Just keeping it real, guys, because I want to make sure we have a good room here. Because I lost my train of thought again. Sheesh kebabs, man. Where was I, Melanie? I was
I
talking about
lost
TLB
my,
Club.
yeah, I was like,
I was
now
talking
I
about
lost my
TLB
There's
train
Club.
a
of thought.
Zoom meeting coming up, and we can join in on that. I also just saw
Yeah.
your YouTube and subscribe to that. So
Oh, geez. Well, thanks, Moringa. I'm delighted. Thanks. Yeah. So if you guys want to come to the Zoom call and see what TLB Club is all about, and what we're talking about, you're more than welcome to. Um, So and I see so, and make sure you follow Melanie. Make sure you follow Sebastian, who's in the audience there. He's also one of our team members. Really, really awesome guy, and he's been very helpful to what we've been doing. So if anybody else wants to come on stage and share a thought, you're more than welcome to as well. Um, I will share a. Uh, I'm a little bit distracted now because I'm trying to think about the things that are happening. It's a really busy week this week. I actually kind of into that, but I also want questions from you guys in terms of what are the questions you have about your brand, about your thought leadership. What are you doing to try to elevate your career or business, and how we can help you? That's really what this room is about. We host this room every week on Mondays at 11 a.m. for the most part. And Melanie, you're gonna bad news. You're gonna hate me because we didn't do this room for a whole month. I did it every week for I guess 2 years, and we just weren't able to do it because we had Memorial Day weekend in the U.S. We had the Canadian Victoria Day. By the way, Moringa, I'm from Toronto, so I'm Canadian. So I took Victoria Day off, right? And so next weekend I've got an outing. I won't be here, Melanie. So I'm gonna have to miss it again. So maybe we'll change the time or something. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it at like at 12 instead of like 11 o'clock. But we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, um, you know, maybe Moringa or Melanie can. When you think about going from a personal brand to building a thought leadership brand, what is the first question that comes to your mind in terms of how would you do? Like, what's something that you would want to know about?
I mean, I think that honestly, it's something that you said earlier in terms of Moringa's kind of follow up question was that, it's that mind piece, to be honest with you. That's what I see people struggle with. It's literally like, I don't know necessarily it's the one thing that, like, do you want to know about, but it's understanding that you have something to offer, because I often hear this as a response in terms of, like, oh well, it's just it's just a sea of, like, I'll just use myself as an example. It's a sea of career coaches out there. Like, how do you, like, how can you be a thought leader as a career coach? Or, I can't be a thought leader. I don't have anything to add, or, like, not owning or not seeing yourself as having value to add to the landscape. And it's really realizing that your audience will find you. Your audience will come to you. Yes, there is a sea of career coaches out there in this world, but I'm not going to be the career coach for everyone, but I will be the career coach for some, and that's who I need to speak to. And so I guess, really understanding, maybe the answer to your question is, how do you dive into, like, understanding what your audience, gravitates towards, or, like, what's that process look like in terms of gaining that knowledge.
And I thought of something else too that I wanted to bring up, which was you were talking about niching, right? And so I think a lot of brands struggle to niche, and niching is a really interesting thing because niching is not just your target audience. Niching is also, for example, the problem you solve. So, for example, people say, "Well, Bobby, like, so for me, like, what is my niche?" Well, my niche is, I'll tell you my niche. My niche is I'm focused on helping brands get clear in their personal brand and build a thought leadership brand. That's the niche I focus on. Now, whether it's someone from insurance or someone from technology or someone from the medical field, that's fine. But that's kind of how I've niched it. Other people niche through their target audience, where they go after pharmaceuticals, or they go after, IT, or they go after something else. But that's kind of what I've done. The other thing with niching that becomes more difficult as you get older. Like for me, I'm someone who's always had a ton of things that I'm interested in. Jack of all trades, master of none. I have a lot of things that in the early days I talked about networking, then I talked about personal branding, then I talked about digital influence, and so I was like, how do I niche myself? And that's kind of where I decided to focus on thought leadership. I felt that thought leadership was a really good topic because it was an umbrella topic that covered all the things that I was into: speaking, storytelling, digital content, relationship building, things like that. So that's kind of what I did. Moringa, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just putting in a little comment there. One thing I was going to say, okay, so obviously on my end, I came in as a listener. I've only, I'm still building up. So as a listener and as somebody who often finds myself gravitating to other people who are doing things or putting themselves out there, that's the thing. It's like when I was doing the project in 2020 to kind of see and just kind of figure out, okay, who am I going to want to be in this, loving, inspirational project? Who's going to have something to say? Well, I found it because the people were putting themselves out there. I don't think I've ever really linked up or talked to people unless they were somehow putting themselves out there, which takes a whole lot of courage, to be honest. And maybe a little bit of delusion, which is fine. Get your delusion out, And so during that time, even while you guys were talking, I was able to subscribe to your YouTube, Bobby, because of this. I have a limit on my following, and it's frustrating at times. But I will always look like, is there a newsletter? And then eventually it may become a booking or something like that, or I may be on here and just connecting other people. So I know that's my value. And so then with Melanie, I went on quickly and I was able to see that once I got to a certain page, there was a subscribe option. So those type of things already, like I had said, like I hadn't had those things set up on my page. That's for me to do because like you had mentioned before, we're often in the design mode or just, not putting something up so that it's visual and ready for customers and people who are interested to follow. But in the meantime, at least like if you're gonna put yourself out there, have some sort of foundation that like you can stand on, and that 20 years from now that you could look back on and be proud of. I think that would be the best thing. And that goes right along with the thought leadership, I would think.
Yeah, no, no, I love that. I think that we all want to create something that we are proud of, that we can stand behind, that we can feel good about as part of our story, as part of our legacy. So I think that what you said makes a lot of sense, and I think that's why a lot of people, when they look at their career, look at their path, it's important for us to think about, okay, well, when I see what I'm doing with my corporate career, when I see what I'm doing with my work and my life, both personal and professional, am I creating a story and a legacy and purpose that I feel proud of, that I can look back on and say, yeah, I'm glad I spent all my time doing that. And that's one of the reasons why personal branding and thought leadership is so important. Because personal branding is about creating that life of meaning and purpose and impact that's aligned with who you are and your values.
It's an
And
investment.
absolutely, for sure. I often say, are you willing to spend 50 hours of your time to have 500,000 hours of fulfillment, impact, and joy? Because if you are, then invest 50 hours of time in your personal brand because that'll go a long way. And then the thought leadership piece is now, well, if you want to have a brand that impacts a lot of people, and empowers thousands or if not millions of hearts and brands out there, then building a thought leadership brand is something you can do. And I had a conversation with somebody in our that I know that says, "Well, I don't want to build a thought leadership brand." That's okay. You don't have to. I mean, I'm not saying everyone has to do that. I think that everyone has a personal brand, whether you like it or not. And everyone has the opportunity to build a thought leadership brand. If you like the outcomes of thought leadership, great. If you want to, be more well known and have easier access to TED Talks and speaking gigs and coaching clients and all that kind of stuff, then yeah, build a thought leadership brand. If you just want to stay in your little hole in the technology hole and work on the computer and not talk to anybody, that's fine too. You can just do that. Don't worry about it. You still have a brand though, so be nice. Don't be a jerk, right? And if you want future jobs or if you get laid off, you want to make sure you have this pretty good brand out there. But for me, I'm always saying, look, you all have this personal brand, so own it, leverage it, manage it, and then build a thought leadership brand because the outcomes are and the benefits you get from it are incredible. and that's why I'm big on that. And on that note, I just shared the in the nest above the webinar I'm doing this Wednesday. It's free for everyone to attend. And if you want to come check that out, I'm going to go through the 8 different essentials of thought leadership to help you 10x your business or career. And of course, if you want more deep dive work on your brand, if you want me to look at your stuff more in more detail, there's an option there to do something deeper afterwards. So you can certainly look at that. But yeah, I'd love to have you guys be part of that. And going back to Moringa, you said that I see your follower account ratio is a little bit off, right? But here's the thing: you're coming up on stage and you're delivering your insights, your experience, your personality, and whatnot. That's going to get you followers. It's going to get you followers. And
Yeah.
here's a tip for everybody. If you tweet about this space and say, "Hey, everybody, come to this amazing Twitter space with Bobby and Melanie," and you tag me, what am I going to do? I'm going to retweet it to my 500,000 followers. You don't think it's going to benefit you? It's going to give you followers. It's going to bring people to the room. It's a win-win. That's why I tell people, hey, just share the room and talk about what you're learning or share some insights. That works really well. I think that Twitter Space is one way to try to maintain my followers because I'm losing them every week thanks to Elon. But we'll see what happens. But I think that's going to help you too, Moringa, to keep doing that. And I think to your other point, having access to the different parts where people can engage you, like having a link tree or having a website or having your YouTube channel, all those things go a long way. Yeah, go ahead, Moringa.
Yeah, I just had something quick to say. I always laugh when I look at that too. I opened this one in 2020, and it was meant to be just art, just not a personal Twitter. So, but before I knew it, I was just following so many people. So I am cutting back. But what I thought about it was interesting. One thing with Elon, I don't know too much about him, but just based on the Twitter stuff and the roller coaster ride, which is putting it lightly. I mean, like, it's kind of interesting how he did an inverse thing there, right? He did something so that, okay, you want to place emphasis on the check. What if we turned it upside down and now the people that didn't have the access have the access? So I think that was kind of funny that he did that. And I'm looking at the follower count in the same way too, because for instance, if you look at the subscribers, there's the new subscription option for people with the check mark or Twitter Blue or the creators who have been around. So you can subscribe to them. And what I was told by Arvid is that he would see his subscribers, like they would come up first a lot of the time. So that's just in link with what you were saying. Like, if you're having engagement, which is kind of why I came here from Instagram, I wanted genuine engagement. And when you start getting it, then it's going to take a long time to narrow it down, but I've kind of gravitated to Twitch and then also, I think just Twitch right now, but or YouTube. YouTube is like my favorite medium, and then Twitter. But I think it's better that I'm coming from there because what I was doing was trying to keep an eye on other accounts that were either I looked up to them or I was interested, and then I could see their thought leadership brand, like their authenticity, and kind of nimble it down. And so now that we're having this blue check mark like revolution, hey, I don't need you. But the thing is, like, I'd rather for anybody that people want to genuinely share rather than like, okay, what's in it for me? Because I've shared. I usually don't share by direct message, but I did share to a bunch of people just because the wording alone, thought leadership brand. I just love the new idea and the momentum, and so that's the people that you're going to attract anyway. Anybody who's self-serving, they can go on those things and be like, I'll tweet you for tweet. Like, that's just not the future. But I'm so glad that you allowed me to come up here. I mean, I do talk with other people in spaces, and people feel like, oh, I want to invite you back, and it's great, and I like it. So it's just great to meet you, and I'm sure I'll be following you. You're an Ontarian?
I'm from Toronto. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Ottawa, yeah, Ontarian.
there you
Well,
are. There you
enjoy
go,
your week
Ontario.
next weekend.
Well, thank you. And I think that I did an entire Twitter space on Elon Musk, and I have lots to say about that. I mean, I think which I don't want to get into. It's a whole rabbit hole from my standpoint because I've been talking about him a lot on LinkedIn as well. The general gist, though, is that I compare to like, let's say Bobby Omar wants to open up. I'm frustrated with my car, and every time I go to the mechanic, and the mechanic does a really terrible job. So I decide to buy every single car mechanic auto shop in the world. And now I declare that every car has to have no doors because I really love having airflow free in my car, and I don't like doors because I find them too constrictive. So I'm going to make sure all cars now have no doors, and that's my plan because that's what I believe. Now everyone else like, no, no, doors are standard for cars. You know, you gotta have doors on cars. I mean, there's reason for it. There's safety issues. There's lots of reasons, legitimate reasons why you have to have a door, and so that's a bad idea, Bobby. You know, I don't care. I own every single car manufacturing, so I'm just gonna have no doors on cars. I'm gonna try to change things. And the way I take that analogy to Twitter with the check marks is that he had a he doesn't know much about social media platforms. He knows about Tesla, he knows about SpaceX, but he doesn't know much about social platforms. So he's coming in without experience. And number two, he has a mindset and a bias towards certain things. So he really disliked the blue check marks, the verified check marks before. But there was a reason why they're there, including the other types of check marks for government agencies, for certain types of organizations, and things like that. And it's the same on other platforms too, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. They have LinkedIn influencer statuses and things like that. So when all the shit came down, the general thing I said was, look, the simple solution is, if you want to have a subscriber check mark, then which I had on Facebook, which was a gray one, you just have a distinct color for that. You have a distinct color for the legacy verified people. You have a distinct color for government organizations. And you have a distinct color for because now we have gold and there's gray and there's blue. And so but he didn't want to do it because of his mindset. So just a
Well,
really
I just checked yesterday. They actually do have for the news, like they have a news organization. So they have a organization check mark,
well, no, I
and
know.
then they
So
have, yeah.
yeah, so my point is, why not have four colors? There are many colors. He decided he didn't want to have that. So that was a big problem because I'm like, the simple solution is you just have four colors. You have the subscriber color, you have the legacy colors, and then you have the organization color, and then the company color. The other problem, of course, is that a lot of companies had to pay a crap load of money for these things, and so some organizations weren't able to handle the gold checkmark cost. But anyway, I digress. Let me get back to the thought leadership thing, which is, and again, that's a legacy piece, right? When you think of Elon Musk, what is his legacy going to be? What are people going to think? What are the majority of people going to think about him as a legacy or story on Twitter and everywhere else? I think that he had a strong brand with the Tesla and SpaceX things, but then with this one, it's definitely there's a lot of critique across the broad spectrum, and so I think that that's going to be a challenge for him. And to your point, I think when it comes to your thought leadership, the way I for me the one of the biggest ways for all of you who are listening to build your thought leadership is your content strategy. What are you putting out? How good is it? How often are you putting it out there? How are you using it to build relationships, engage people? And how are you using it to add value to your target audience? How focused is it? All those different aspects of your content strategy will go a long way. And because your content strategy it will directly feed your personal brand. It will definitely it'll feed into your storytelling, speaking, and communication skills. It'll feed into your relationship building. And so, and now with the pandemic having come and gone, your digital presence matters far more than ever used to. And I'll talk about that on Wednesday as well. But I think that everyone should realize that when it comes to personal branding. So, with that, we're at the hour. I'm actually going to leave because I have my kids are home from school. So actually, I'm going to take them out for lunch. But normally I go for an hour and a half on these days. But I hope you guys join me
Oh, what's for
next time.
lunch though?